Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to take one masterboard and I'm going to make three different projects: an art journal page, a card, and a composition book. Here's the masterboard that I created, and I will put a link to this video if you want to see how I built those layers using my 5-step approach to building a masterboard. So then I pull out my window templates and I have these cut for all the various size substrates that I might be using with my masterboards. And then I can just pull it over and it helps me decide what I want to do with the masterboard. So I decide that I'm going to do a art journal page 7 by 10, and I'm just using my rotary cutter to cut it out, or trying to cut it out. I'm actually ending up having to do this old school with scissors and cutting it out. So I cut out the biggest element that I am going to use. Now, in my last masterboard, I cut out some circles, and I really like the possibilities that gave me. So I am going to be cutting out some circles, but I think what I'm going to do first, I'm going to maybe do another art journal page. I'm thinking maybe I'll do two, but I decided to do a 6 by 6 card, the 7 by 10 art journal page. And then I do end up deciding to cut out some circles, as well as cut out pieces to cover this mini composition book. I love using the masterboard to make cards and composition books, things that I can give as gifts or even sell at craft fairs. It's a very quick, efficient way of making a lot of stuff in the least amount of time. So I'm using my circle template here and I'm going as big as I can. These are 3.5, 3 inches. And I'm going to get 3 circles out of it. So I'm just going to cut these out quickly and set them aside. I don't know what I'm going to use them for, but I know I enjoyed doing it in my last masterboard, using them to make embellishments, to make things that I could put as focal images on a art journal page. And I'm going to save the little bits because you never know. So we have a composition book, 3 circles, the 6 by 6 card that I do cut down to 5.5 by 5.5, so that I end up with a white border, and the 7 by 10 art journal page. So off camera, I glue all those backgrounds onto the substrate, onto the art journal page. Now for this one, I pull out this napkin that has this pink. And remember I said I added the pink? Because there's the pink in the background, this works well. So I'm pulling off the 2 excess plies and just auditioning it on the page. Do I want it in the left-hand corner or do I want it in the right-hand corner? And I'm visual. I need to actually put it on there and get a feel for it. So once I decide that I'm going to do the one on the right-hand side, I'm using my fluid matte medium and I'm going to glue this down onto just regular copy paper. And the reason I'm doing that is so that whatever is in that background, on that masterboard background, isn't going to come through the napkin. I don't want those black dots showing through my flower. I want the flower to look like the flower. Then once it's dry, I do cut it out. And flowers are very forgiving. You don't have to cut so precise. Now, I am going to say here, I am going to be bouncing back and forth between the 3 projects that I do for this masterboard. I do the same activity on each one of the projects. That saves time, uh, uses the same project. So now that while that's drying, I cut out this digital stamp. This is from Elena Zinsky Art. And I love these little sheep. And there was 3 of them there, but I only want the first one. So I cut him off, and then I'm cutting off the excess, and I'm going to put him on this card. And with that colorful background, the white, black and white stamp works really, really well. And of course, the sheep is going to be white. Before I glue this down, I wanted to edge the masterboard insert here with black acrylic paint. Now you could do this before, and then you're not running the risk of getting any of that black on that white border. So if you're not so sure about your skills to get this done without getting the black on the white, you can just do that before you glue it down. This just, in my mind, just adds so much. I just want to get that dry. And I'm just going to glue that down with my fluid matte medium as well. And I'm going to try to make sure I have a place to put a sentiment on this card. Doing these 3 projects kind of assembly line also allows me to move on, and it can sit and dry while I'm working on another piece. Isn't he, this little lamb, so adorable? So again, this was a digital stamp, which allows me to increase the size or decrease the size to fit whatever composition. Now I'm painting the heart in the middle here, color that I'm pulling from the background. So even if you have a scrapbook paper or a masterboard that has a different colors, I would just paint the heart something that matches the background so it works together. And then I'm putting a little bit of that same corally pink in the ears. Now I'm getting some white gesso on my brush, and I'm just dab painting the wool on the sheep here. Sheep, lamb. I'm trying to instill some texture, and I don't want it to look like just copy paper. And so by adding this coat of paint, now I'm not too worried if I've covered up some of the line work, because I'm going to come with my Posca marker later and add those in. You can still see the lines on the face, so that's going to be easier. Then I'm shading the heart. And then I'm going to shade with black around the lamb. And this is just going to make it stand out from the background. Every bit, every little detail that I put into that background, you can still see. And without doing a masterboard, my backgrounds would not be as complex as this. And here I'm coming in with the Posca pen and just adding the line work back in. Some sketchy lines. These 6x6 card bases are from the Crafter's Workshop, and they come with envelopes. And the card stock, it really stands up to a lot of the mixed media stuff that we throw at it. I decided to add a little bit of more of that stamping. I had some blank areas, but I wanted to avoid the white border. So let's go back to the art journal page. So I'm going to edge this page just like I did the card. A lot of the steps are the same, regardless of whether you're making a card, an art journal page, a journal cover. I really like the way this frames the page. So there is my flower. This napkin comes from NinnysNapkins.com, and there's a coupon code in the description box, and I'll list the name, but you can see how big this bloom is. I wanted to add a little bit more detail, so I grabbed this word stamp, also from Ninny's Napkins, and I'm just adding a little extra something to the background. Remember, the masterboard is just the starting point. You can add color, you can add stamps or stenciling to fit how you actually end up using it. Now, I was always going to put it in this right-hand side, and then all of a sudden I decided, oh, what happens if I move it over here? And I start playing with other options. And, well, wouldn't you know it, I changed my mind and decide to glue this down here. And I'm using gel medium because that has napkin and copy paper, and it's going on a textured thing, so gel medium is a little heavier duty. And I want to make sure I get a good coat of gel medium on top because I want this to be non-porous because I plan to do some additional work on it. I'm cutting that piece off, and I play with the idea of reshaping this petal. Looks a little cut off. I get it all in place. I glue it down. In the end, I take it off and I end up with it, just using it the way it was. And it works perfectly fine. I like how this flower, I've kind of placed it so it's not on center. It's falling off the page. Now I'm going to achieve a painterly look on top of this flower. I'm adding some white with white gesso, and then I'm grabbing some magenta, and inadvertently, by accident, I get orange on it. My intent was not to mix the orange on this. My intent was to keep it pink. But I got the orange in there, and it made that coral color, and I looked at it, and I liked it. So it was a good accident, and I ended up changing the color from magenta to a little bit of that coral in the flower. So again, with the napkin, you can recolorize it. Is that a word? You can alter the color that it is to fit your background, to fit your what you want to do. And then I'm shading around the flower to make the focal image stand off from the background. Because I'm doing all three projects together, if I have magenta paint and I need it, I have it on the palette. So nothing really goes to waste, and it's just very efficient to do it more assembly line. But if that confuses you, if that makes it harder for you to create, then do one to completion and then do another, then do another. Sometimes it just, when you have too much, I know when I started, I could not do multiple ATCs at the same time. I needed to do one from beginning to end and then start the next. The center of the flower was yellow, but I decided to match the gold splatters. I'm going to dab gold paint in the center of the flower. Just add a little bit of shimmer and shine. So my composition book, I decided to keep it very, very simple. All I've done here is glue it down. I've edged it and I've drawn a line around the border. And now I'm just cutting out these flowers. This is a TCW stamp, and I will list that in the description box. And I had stamped it the last time I had used this stamp, I had stamped multiples, and I just keep them in my stash and they're at the ready. So I didn't have to dig out the stamps and do anything. I just am cutting out the stamps. I'm just deciding, do I want two? Do I want three? And I grab a sentiment from my Through the Garden Gate sentiment pack, and I just cut out the word believe from the rest of the sentiment. And I printed off a few sentiments for this cute card. And I'm going to say, you matter. I think this card would be so adorable, and I plan on making extras of the exact same card. I can change up the sentiment if I want. I just think it's so adorable, regardless of the different colors that I could use. And this comes from my Simplify sentiment pack. There's beauty in simplicity. So you can see that even though I'm doing three projects, that went fairly quickly because the background was already done, because I used that masterboard. And for the most part, it was an Instaboat background for all three of these projects. I had to add very, very little. Basically, it was a selection of focal points and shading and edging and adding the sentiment. I grab the Posca pen and I'm outlining all my sentiments. adding some of the black marks back into the center of the flower. I'm doing a little bit of sketchy line work as well. Then I decide to get some yellow and paint yellow in the center of these flowers just to give a little bit of color and to tie into the background. And then I shade it with a little bit of the pink as well, just to get a little bit of that tone in there. So here is the art journal page using a napkin. And my favorite make of the day, You Matter card. I absolutely adore this character. And as I said, I will be making more of these with different colored backgrounds, and I'll just change the color of the heart to match the background. It just makes me smile. And a composition book. Now, if you remember, I had those 3 circles that I cut out. I've got a couple ideas for how I want to do what I want to do with this, but it's a little more involved, so it's going to get its own video. So be sure to subscribe to my channel, click on the bell, select the option to be notified of upcoming videos, and you won't miss any videos and tutorials. I hope you enjoyed my multi-makes from my masterboard. Ask me a question, leave me a comment. Which of the 3 projects do you like the most? Enjoy the close-ups, and until next time, go get creative.